It is your Classic Metal Show right here on theclassicmetalshow.com. That is from the brand new album Scatterbrain. The name of that tune was Breakout, and the band, of course, was KXM. And on the line right now is the K of KXM. It is Korn and KXM drummer Ray Luzier. Ray, how are you, man?
What's happening, man?
Not much, man. Just rocking to this new record, man. What a good, different, interesting release this is. It's, you know, I'll give you my observation first, and then you can go from there. It's kind of
okay.
it's kind of different because it's more catchy than the first record, but it's also darker than the last record. You know, for me, it's just almost like it's a different experience. I mean, it's still obviously you three guys, but very lot of growth or change or whatever from it.
Well, I'll take that, catchy and darker. That's a good description. You know, it's fun to branch out. You know, I'm dedicated 100% to Korn. You know, my band, it's my 10th year with them. But as an artist, you definitely want to reach out and branch out. What's exciting about the KXM both records, you know, Doug, George, and I both have so much experience and so many miles on us that just to get in the studio and write a song a day, you know, we don't go in and prepare and do pre-production and write for months and months. We literally book 12 days of studio time and write 13 songs in that time. And, you know, don't overthink it. No one can tell each other what to do. It's 100% us. There's no producer. And there's a beauty about that. You know, the pressure's on, the red light's on. Let's see what you got. And I'm really happy with it.
Sure. Now, does that come with a frustration too when something doesn't click between you guys?
There was a couple of days, man, where you know, we start at noon and by 4 or 5 o'clock you're like, uh-oh, I don't think this is going to happen today. And then all of a sudden George would step on a whammy pedal or Doug would, you know, go to a different note and you're like, wait, do that again. The next thing you know, boom, I'm tracking drums for that song at 6 or 7 o'clock. So it was so cool to do it that way. And you're so on the cuff and which to most musicians is insane. They would, you know, most musicians would be like, you're completely nuts. I'm not, you know, give us a couple of weeks to at least write. And a lot of it had to do with time constraints. You know, we're all so busy in each of our bands that we don't have months to do that. And, but we have great respect for each other's musicianship and as people. So, yeah, I'm so stoked for everyone to hear it.
Sure. Now, it's interesting with what you're saying here because for the outsider that doesn't know a lot of that, and especially the time constraint thing, you guys have a real chemistry that bleeds through both records, and it just sounds like you play naturally up against one another. You know, how do you think that chemistry develops so quickly when you really don't have a lot of time, you know, actively together working on things?
Yeah, and you don't know if you're going to, I mean, just because you're good buddies and like each other's music doesn't mean you're going to mesh as a band. I mean, I've got together with some musicians I really look up to, and I'm like, yikes,
right.
This ain't happening, you know? So we had no idea. You know, this all started with my son's first birthday party 6 years ago at my house in L.A. in my little studio, and Doug, George, and I all were the only ones left at the party. And we were hanging out in my studio, and George looked over and said, "This would make a great lineup we should do a band someday." And I'm like, "Yeah, right. That'll never happen," you know, because of all our schedules and the obvious things going on in life. So George was so persistent. He kept calling us, going, "Okay, Korn's off this date. King's X is off here. I don't have any Lynch Mob stuff. Let's get together." And little by little, we just kept chipping away at the stone and doing a song a day. And so the first time we got in the studio, we just started laughing because we're such different players that it just worked. I mean, and Doug would say, like, you know, "Wait, George, you're a little too scattered. Like, come back to that riff. You're going over here. I need you to come back." And it was interesting to see that, you know, just to see where the levels of patience would go.
Right.
But it just clicked, man. It really did. And the fans liked it so much the first one that we said, "Hey, let's do another one." And sometimes you're scared to do another one because what if it's not as good, or what if you don't have that chemistry again?
Sure. Definitely. Now I'm only judging this basically from what I know, which is the releases that the three of you have done collectively, or independently rather. And I would say between yourself and George, you two are the most, I'm going to say, musically creative, just because you've played so many different styles of things in your career. You know, who do you think is the more creative element, yourself, George, or am I missing the boat and really it's Doug?
You know, it's all three of us. I got to say, there's no one more than the other. It's the weirdest thing. And Doug always rips on himself for like, I'm not a good bass player, and he really is. I mean, that tone that he has, and where he places the notes. He's not this busy bass player, which you don't need to be, but where he puts the notes and where the melodies he comes up with as a vocalist they're just mind blowing. There's so much soul that he has, and on and on. So. I honestly think it's all three of us together, because there's times where we'd take a lunch break and George can't put his guitar down, you know. Right. He'd like, I got this whole thing worked out, and he'd play it, and Doug would be like, but I don't know, it's not really us. And next thing you know, it had to be all three of us together. There wasn't one thing on either record where it was like, okay, guys, I got this whole complete thing set up. It wasn't like that. We had to be on the spot. And just dissecting the parts, and let's move this chord here and let's move that there. And like I said, I think with all the experience we had, it's easy to do that. So yeah, I would say third each.
All right, fair enough, man. Now, being honest, man, you guys, I'm sure the whole world was kind of surprised, a little bit surprised that this record had some commercial viability, meaning. It hit on Billboard, and I'll be honest, it got more attention than I thought it would. The first record, rather. I mean, you know how these records go, man. Everybody looks at it, and immediately they say side project, and immediately they half listen. You know, it's just the nature of the beast. Were you guys A, surprised, and B, does it put any sort of pressure on you this time to at least hit or exceed those expectations that are now out there from the attention you got previously?
Well, yeah, I mean, that was my biggest fear in the first place. Is like you said, when you hear the word side project, or you don't give it as much as you should. But I still have people coming up to Korn meet and greets with a KXM vinyl, the first record in their hands, going, "Dude, I just discovered this like 3 weeks ago, and it's amazing." And so. It's cool that people are still getting turned on to, but my biggest fear was people not being informed. So there's great people like yourself that we're doing this interview right now that hopefully you guys will go check it out because of it's, you're being told about it. So when in fact it came out, we're like, how are people going to receive this? And I was getting calls from just the most bizarre people that I haven't talked to in years, or emails from people going, dude, no offense, like I'm not a huge Korn fan, but I can't stop spinning this KXM. And I'm like, what? So it was weird to hear all these different things. And then I'd get a Korn fan coming up going like, I don't want to hear you do anything but Korn, but I bought the KXM and I freaking love it. Nice. I'm like, okay. So I'm hearing all these different stories, and I think that's what inspired us to do the second one. And there was no pressure of like, oh, we got to top that. Let's just be ourselves. And who knows, maybe this time it won't be good enough to even release. But we knew we wrote Breakout and we Noises in the Sky, and which are the two videos out right now. Sure. And Scatterbrain was kind of in the middle somewhere. And we knew once we had something going again, we knew the chemistry was there, and we knew it was positive. And when there's smiles on our faces and we're not stressed out, it's a good thing,
Very cool, man. Now, one of the songs I wanted to narrow into a little bit is the tune Not a Single Word. That is probably the coolest meshing of musical styles of anything that you guys have done to date. Talk a little bit about that.
That's my wife's favorite. That's my wife's favorite song.
What did you write that one, or what do you attribute to so many different pieces, parts, styles all meshed together so well on that one?
Well, yeah, I used to teach at a music school called Musicians Institute in Hollywood, at the percussion department. And of course, I was the rock double bass guy because there were so many jazz specialists and reggae and funk and Latin, everything, and I was always the rock metal head there, but I would, you absorb all these other styles and it really opens your mind. I always tell people, like, don't be so closed-minded when you're listening to music. Really listen to other stuff that you maybe, I'm not a big country fan. I kind of make myself listen to country because it's such a popular style of music, but I've always been intrigued by, ska and reggae and all that stuff. So we were playing this, we started the song, and I wanted something a little bit more up-tempo, kind of like a Foo Fighters vibe. I remember saying that, and we just went off, and I started hitting my side snare drum and doing the ska thing, and George completely changed his guitar tone, and Doug turned something on his knob, and next thing you know, we're playing this like kind of ska thing in the verse, and nothing was planned. Like I said, we just experimental, and it worked.
Sure. Well, for people that want to hear this and a whole lot more like this, they can check out the new release, Scatterbrain from KXM. When is it out, Ray?
March 17th, and I really appreciate people picking it up and buying it. Like, I'm not going to get preachy, but people, a lot goes into these records, and there's a lot of cool bonus bundles and things you can get, signed CDs from us, and all kinds of merch. If you go to ratpackrecords.com, and obviously our social medias pages have all that info on them as well.
All right, excellent. Well, Ray, as a tradition on the show, we always let the artist pick a closing track to wrap this up and maybe tell us a story about it. So what should we wrap with?
What do you mean, off of Scatterbrain?
Yeah.
Man, I'll tell you what, if you can play Noises in the Sky, that's the video that just came out, and we're super happy with it. It's a totally different groove and a totally different, George is, I think he's at the peak right now. It's funny because as much as, just when I think that guy can't play any better, he does one of the most shredding guitar solos on that song, and I call it the Church of Doug. He does this like gospel thing in the middle of this song that just gave me chills the first time I heard it. So I'm real proud of Noises in the Sky.
All right, well, let's check it out right now. This is Noises in the Sky. It's KXM right here on your Classic Metal Show.